WACC. What does WACC stand for? The weighted average cost of capital. We know that capital is either borrowed or retained in a company. And we have what we call a capital structure. So monies can come from what is called common stock, which is equity. It has a cost attached to it. So equity is calculated using two models. What we call the capital asset price model, the capm model, and what we call Gordon's model. So the cost of equity is important for the shareholders to know how much dividends are receiving. It's a cost. So it's given by the risk-free rate plus the beta, market beta, and expected market return minus the risk-free rate. It's also calculated by D1 over PO as growth. We know that D1 is the same as D0, 1 plus growth. So this is one source of capital structure that you need to know. And the other source is called debt. Debt can be in terms of bonds, debentures, or even loans. All these have a cost of interest attached to it. Now, because there are already charged interest in the income statement, to avoid you having a high cost, you have what is called a tax shield. So the cost of debt after tax is simply 1 minus tax that you multiply to the cost of debt in question. And we also have preferred stock. Cost of preferred stock. We know that we have two types of shareholders. Ordinary shareholders, who are the equity holders, or common stock holders, who are the real owners of the business. These receive the residue after all payments are made to the speculative investors, in this case, who we know are the speculative, cumulative, and non-cumulative preference shareholders. So the common stockholders or ordinary shareholders are the real owners of the business who have what we call voting rights. Dividends are paid off to shareholders who buy holdings of the company in terms of shares. So the preference shareholders are given their calculations as follows. Now, we're going to look at how to compute WACC. Looking at this question, first of all, we have a company called Lexton. They have beta of 1.1. The risk premium is 5%, and the government bonds are currently at 7.5. So this is the risk-free rate. So the treasury bills are the most risk-free assets one can buy. And the bonds are issued at 100 kwacha par value, which is currently trading at 94.50. The coupon rate is 8%, maturing in 5 years' time. Corporation tax is 28%, and interest is payable in arrears. We're being asked, number one, calculate using the capm model the value or the cost of equity. So what are we given under capm model? We know that under capm model, asset pricing model is given by KE F and beta expected market return, which is collectively called the premium. This is called the premium. From the question, let's only identify the relevant stuff to this model. So what do we have? Our beta 1.0. The risk premium, which is ERM minus what? RF as 5%. So this is a premium, 5%. And we also have the risk-free rate, RF at 7.5%. So we have our beta as 1.1, risk-free rate as 5%, 7.5%, and our risk premium as 5%. Quickly calculate the cost of equity. Calculate the cost of equity. What are you finding? %7.5% plus 1.10, 5%, 13%. Is that what you found?
Yes, 13%.
Okay. Question, please, Fa. So this is using the capm model. Then what is the cost after tax? So what is the after cost of debt? 5 marks. Now I've explained. What are we given here? We've given tax. Tax rate is what?
28%.
8%. What else are we given? What else are we given? Interest rate. What is our annual interest rate payable?
8%.
We have 8%. What else are we given? The bond value and the redemptive value. The bond value, the par value of the bond, which is 100 kwacha. Currently selling the value of the bond. This is 94.50. The time we have here is what? 5 years.
5 years.
Okay. So we want to calculate the cost of debt. So we need to understand that the cost of debt here calculated in a very similar way. Those that missed bond valuation, I think you need to book by class so that we can also take you through. So the computation here will be similar to that of a bond. So we're going to have KD will be the payment I. Of course, here we need to remove the tax shield minus tax. Okay, plus the maturity value, the par value, we subtract the value of the bond over N. Divide everything by value of the bond plus maturity value over 2. So let's start with the interest we had. It's 8%. But because this has a tax aspect of, what was the tax? I was
28.
8%. And our tax was what? And 8%. So meaning here we're going to have 1 minus 0.28. What do we get?
We have 0.0576.
What do we have? Was the coupon value, we know it's a coupon interest times the maturity value. So 8%
That is 0.72.
times 100 is simply 8. Here we're going to have 8 only, not 8%. So here what are we going to have? 1 minus 0.28, what do we get?
0.76.
0.7.
72.
And the final answer will be
5.76.
5.76. And we also had the time of 5 years, and the par value, which is the maturity value, is 100. The bond value is selling for how much? 94.5. Here we're going to have 5.76 plus 100 minus 94.5 over the N period, which is 5, divided by the value of the bond, the par selling price, 94.5 plus 100. Divide this by 2. So this ultimately give you 7.05. This is the way we even calculate the yield to maturity, or ATM, similar. So this is how we get the cost of the bond. So I'll explain more of this for those who missed bond valuation, very important. So we're going to look at part C. We're told that Lexington paid a dividend of 0.12 per share, and the dividend per share is expected to grow at what? 7% indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
And the company's share price is what?
2.3.
So using Gordon's model, we know that Gordon's model is what? D1 over P0
Over P0 plus G.
plus G. Good. So that is our, so now the price that we have there is the price now. So we know that P1, D1 is the same as what? So using Gordon's model, this is D1 over PO plus G. But if you're just been given a dividend now, you can do this plus G over what? PO. What are we given in this question? We've been given a growth rate. G is what? 7%.
7%.
Also given. Our D0 is what? 0.12.
0.12.
And then the PO, the price now, is what?
2.30.
So here we're going to have, since our D0 is 0.12, and our P0 2.3, and our growth 7%. Can you try to calculate the cost of equity, everything being there? Wait a second. See what you're going to get.
I'm guessing 0.1258.
Yes, that's the correct answer. 0.1258 or 12.58%. So 12.58%. This is our cost of what? Of equity. So we now go to the last part where WACC comes in. Like I said, WACC stands for the weighted average cost of capital. And you need to know what has been given. So WACC is given by the weight of what? Equity and the cost of equity plus the weight of preferred stock and the cost of preferred stock plus the weight of what? Debt and the weight of debt. Of course, considering the tax shield that is involved. So let's go to our question here and see what is relevant to this. So you need to see, so what is the weighted average cost of capital if the debt to equity ratio is 50%? use the cost of equity as per capm. So what are we supposed to do at this point? So we have the following details. From what we just calculated, okay, fine. We have the debt to equity ratio is 50%. So we know debt to equity ratio D over equity ratio is 0.5. So first multiply this by that would be 0.5 times what? The equity. We know that the debt plus equity must always add up to 1. Debt plus the equity must always add up to 1. So since our debt is 0.5e, debt plus equity must go to 1. Where there is debt, we put 0.5e. 0.5e 0.5e plus e is equal to 1. So here we're going to have 1.5e get 1. So we divide by 1.5 on both sides. Our e will be 0.66. So meaning of this composition, the remainder is our debt. Now we need to now calculate for the WACC. So the proportion that we just computed, our equity is 6.6% or 0.66%, then our debt here is 0.34. That is adding up to 1. So how do we then calculate our WACC? So WACC has the following formula. So debt times the cost of debt plus equity times the cost of equity. So our debt here is the weight of the debt. If you're not given the amounts like we were doing in the previous, you can calculate the weights using what we're just from doing here. So the weight composition of the equity is 66% and the weight of the debt is 34%. So we're going to rule out what? The preference shares because they're not here. We can't consider them in this calculation. So we already calculated using the capm model, our cost of equity was what? KE. Using the capm model, KE was what? This is Gordon's model. Using capm model, %, and our cost of debt was 7.005. So where there's equity, we put 13%. So using this formula, I'm going to say WACC is the weight of equity and cost of equity plus the weight of debt and cost of debt. The weight of equity, 66%. The cost of equity, 13%. Plus the weight of debt here, we just found 34%. of debt is what? 7.05%. So if you're going to multiply those two, what are you getting here? As our work. So our work, therefore, will be just the two items, the weight of equity and the cost of equity, plus the weight of debt times the cost of debt. So our weight of equity, I need to re-emphasize. I think this is where people could have been confused. You're okay with how we found the cost of equity using the capm model at 13% and using the 7.05%. At the weight of equity, we found 66%, and the weight of debt we found at 4%. And the assumption, we know that debt plus equity is equal to 1. And the debt to equity ratio is 50%. Cross multiply equity is equal to what? 2D. What is equity here? You can put 2D. So D is equal to 2D is equal to 1. 3D is equal to 1. Debt is equal to 1 over 3, meaning equity is equal to 2 over 3. Proportions if you want. So we know that work is equal to weight of debt, weight of equity, plus weight of debt, So our weight of equity is 2 over 3. And what did we find? 18%. The weight of debt, 1 over 3. And what did we find? 7.05%. Compute this. Ultimately, you're going to find 10.97% as your work. This is how we find work using the weight. Our next class on work will be on the market values. Work is computed in 3 ways. So this is where we end. Unless there are any questions.